Good morning. Welcome again to Truce Talks. I have a very, very special guest today, Mike Jones from Resound Creative, a very, very exciting and vital branding company. I've known Mike for a number of years now. He went with us to our first Expo West, and they designed the beautiful sign that was behind us. And it was a really, really successful show. And Mike and I have stayed in touch. We're also both tenants of Max 6, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. But Mike, welcome. Good morning.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on, Diane.
How are you doing with this forced quarantine thing? Are you and the kid,
Yeah,
your wife okay?
yeah, no, we're doing well. It's funny, so I've got three little kids, for those that don't know me, and they're all I got five, 3, and 1 year olds.
Oh, you're busy.
So we were already busy, and my wife was homeschooling the older two through preschool. So in some ways, like for them, this is no different than every other day. They wake up, they're at home all day anyway, and maybe a little less outings, to different places. And
Yeah.
I'm sure the longer this goes on, the more they'll be like, hey, when are we going to go see grandparents? And well, it's probably going to be a little while.
It's looking like it's going to be a
Yeah.
little while. Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm definitely the extrovert in the family, so I'm probably the one that's most impacted by not seeing real people in
Yeah.
in real life. I'm getting to see lots of real people through phone calls and Zoom calls and all that fun stuff. So
And
it's
now you're
been
sitting
good.
in your space at Max 6,
Yep.
co-working space, and no one's there.
Nobody's here. So, a co-working space that typically has, maybe 30 people,
Yeah.
working and getting stuff done every day, and everyone's disappeared. I mean, the lights aren't even on. So it's crazy. I just popped in here to grab the mail and do a little quick call with you. So,
Yeah.
um,
And I'm delighted.
yeah, it's
I'm
crazy.
delighted. Thank you
Yeah.
for doing that.
Yeah.
Um, Tell me a little bit about how you fell in love with what you do. Explain what Resound Creative does
Yep.
and how you arrived there. Of all the things in the world to do, how did this capture you?
Yeah. So Resound started in 2009. My two friends of mine, David and Jeff, and I formed the company together. We'd all been working in different creative fields. I'd been doing graphic design within agencies and a lot of freelance stuff. David he'd done acting, he'd done some directing of films. He was doing account service at the time in a marketing agency. My other partner, Jeff, is super creative guy on the writing side, done a lot of creative writing, and actually like amazingly smart guy. He actually was doing philosophy as well. He's got his PhD in philosophy. He teaches full-time at ASU in the philosophy program there. But so we kind of said, hey, we love doing creative work, and we love doing it specifically with businesses who, I think, out of all the people in the world who need to tell their story but often struggle to, those are the people we really wanted to help. It's like you're really good at what right? Your product or your service, your area of expertise, but a lot of times that doesn't translate into telling a really good story that helps position your company and position it with customers and
Mm-hmm.
with investors and even your employees. And so that's really where we realized with our kind of skill sets that we had the ability to actually brand companies, which is, when we talk about brand, we don't mean just the logo or the name. We really mean like the complete story and how you position yourself, how you deliver that ultimate message through all of those visuals and verbal communications. And so that's what we've been doing for the last 11 years. The company, our agency has changed. Resound has changed over the years. We started with just the three of us. Now we've got staff. We've got people all over the U.S. that do work for us on our team. And we still do basically what we started doing, just with different companies. We work with primarily B2B based companies, so companies that sell to other businesses. That's our core kind of expertise. I've been doing that kind of work for many years now. So that's how we got into it. My personal story, I've been doing graphic design since high school. And in my college years, I went to the school for history. I thought I was going to teach history full time uh, at the collegiate level, and realized, man, I'm not cut for the academic world. And as I kind of had that soul searching through that process, I'm like, what am I supposed to be doing? I realized, like, I've already been doing design and I have this artistic bent. And
So did you switch
um,
majors?
no, well, I started to, and then actually got into doing it freelancing, and then got a job doing it. And at that point was like, I don't actually need the degree. And I was behind the eight ball on the degree at that point. And so I
Yeah.
just full turkey went into the business world. Um, and within a year or two, I realized, like, my passion is both on the creative side, but also the business side of kind of marrying the two. You know, how does creativity build and help businesses? In hindsight, I should have seen this coming, that I would own a business. My grandfather started and built a very successful construction company in Florida back in the 50s and 60s. And then my dad started his own company in the early 90s doing janitorial service here in Phoenix. And here I am in 2009 starting a business with two friends. And I tried to start a couple other businesses prior to that. And so there's some entrepreneurial blood in me, clearly.
Yeah. Yeah. There
Took me
definitely is.
doing it to really figure that out. But yeah, so that's kind of my backstory. Um, yeah, just doing creative work and realizing, like, that's what I'm good at. It's what I love. I love the branding side of creativity, of this idea of unpacking an organization, this really complex entity, right? An organization is complex. There's a lot of people involved. There's a lot of ideas, opinions. There's a culture, and unpacking that and finding the identity of that company, and then helping them communicate it really well and authentically and with creativity. That's what I love doing. So that's what I do.
How did you wind up at Max 6? How did you
Yeah,
land there? How did that happen?
a little bit of happenstance. We back in 2015, we were officing out of a small space in right here in Tempe, and I had worked out of co-working spaces before, early on and starting Resound, and I loved it. I love the community. I love the collaboration.
Oh, that's what we
I
like.
love all that. And I love Tempe. And at the time, we had this little office. It was just an executive suite style office. And we're like, man, co-working space would be awesome. And we looked and we didn't find anything. And so we were like, well, I guess that's not in the cards if we want to stay in Tempe. And so let's go get an office. And we started searching for another office, a larger office, and, doing the typical, like, all right, we're going to have to
Hmm.
go pony up a bunch of money and get on a, multi-year lease and do tenant improvements and invest in the space. And in that process, I think I had posted something on Facebook, and a friend of mine popped up and said, hey, I don't know if you're open to co-working spaces, but I work out of this one in Tempe called Max 6. You should come check it out. And my first thought was like, nah, there's no co-working spaces in Tempe. I've already looked. And I went to the website and I'm like, sure it is. There it is. It's in Tempe. I don't know how I didn't
Yeah.
find them before. And met Kyle and Jen, who are on the Max 6 team here. And I pretty quickly realized there was this really cool overlap of values, that what they believed in as a company really resonated with what we believed in, and their willingness and their just wanting to understand our particular circumstances and context of our business and put together something that worked for us, that really was going to help our company grow, was just amazing. And so very quickly, that's how it was almost like a done deal as soon as we met, and they kind of put together, like, here's what we want to do. And I said, here's what I need. And it just worked out really well. So we moved in 2016. And since then, we've only seen that relationship has grown. So now, like, we've been officing here out of the Max 6 space for, 2016. So almost, I think, over 4 years now.
Yeah.
And, we've helped them with their marketing. We have a great kind of very symbiotic relationship, and we've gotten to know lots of other companies in the spaces that they have, including you guys,
Yeah.
over the years. And it's just been fantastic. We just had that same kind of experience where like the community here is like-minded enough that everyone's kind of on the same page about like how we want to do business and the kind of relationship first approach. And that
And
has been huge for us.
Businesses can be isolating, as you were
Mm-hmm.
talking about before. You had sort of a typical suite, not a lot of interaction, locked into a lease. And what's interesting for us as well is that sense of community. We now have a key to the forklift.
Yep.
Go figure, because we use it going up and down, and we have a certified driver on staff, and it's like, there's a forklift we can use.
Yep.
How cool is that? Yeah,
Yep.
Mac 6 is a pretty amazing concept for a co-working space. It's not the whole frills and organic fruit and games in the lobby, but which is good because we
It
have
is.
work to do.
It
But
is.
it's just marvelous. And I
Yep.
remember meeting you at sort of a meeting we were all having and talking about expo or talking about trade show. And we caught one another's attention. Actually, there was a young woman working with you whom I knew.
Stephanie, I
Yeah,
think, was the linchpin
yeah.
connection because
And she
she, I think,
heard me
lives
say trade
nearby.
show. And it was
Yep.
like, whoa, okay, we need to talk. And we've been
Yeah.
talking ever since, which is really very
Yep.
cool. I
It's
wanted
been
to
really
talk
cool.
to you a little bit about, yeah, I've seen your company grow. I've seen your staff change, about the idea of being a distributed business, which you are
Yes,
kind of now.
we
And
are. Yeah.
we're functioning perfectly well from home,
Yeah.
and we like it. We had 1 day a week that was distributed anyway on Wednesday, and now we're looking at, well, how distributed could we be? We need the warehouse, but
Yep.
we really don't need to be there all the time. And are you finding that as well, that you're outsourcing things and becoming more
Yeah. So we've
distributed?
gone through probably about a 2.5, 3 year transition where, 3 years ago we had everybody in house. Everyone
Yeah.
was an employee. For the most part, we had some contractors that would come in on kind of an ad hoc basis for specific
Mm-hmm.
projects, but we had a lot of staff. Some of that's just our business has changed. We've gotten much more narrow into work that is more project based, and that requires us to be more nimble from a staffing standpoint. We don't need, everybody to be full time all the time.
Right.
And we found on the other end too, it was really interesting. Like our staff, especially I think with creatives who are a little bit younger,
Mm-hmm.
they want that flexibility to like work from anywhere, set their own schedules, maybe even pick up some clients on the side that maybe they can pursue that are a little more interesting to them, or like stretch their creative abilities. So like, for instance, we've got one designer that we work with a lot, and she's got a whole separate business doing food photography for restaurants. And that's not something we do. And so like, it didn't make sense for her. Like she was like, I'm going to have this little side business, and for her to be able to have the time to
Right.
develop that while also still working with us on our client stuff, because she's a fantastic fit for what we need, just made for a really good partnership. And so what we found is like, there's a certain level at which it's like, even the people that were working for us don't actually want that full time, because there's constraints that come with full time.
Right. There are.
Like I, not least like, hey, like you got to be putting in the hours for me to make it worth the salary I'm going to pay you, and the health benefits and all that great stuff we want to provide for our full-time people. And sometimes that means doing stuff you don't love, or having to be on call or working, during hours where you would prefer some more flexibility and stuff. And so moving people to contractor roles where it made sense for them, for their needs and desires, as well as like, hey, we don't always need everybody on every single project.
And
So how
now
can we be
don't you kind
smarter
of
about this?
now don't you kind of find yourself ahead of the
Yep.
movement that's
Oh, way
coming?
ahead.
Because it's
Yeah.
coming.
So
And I
like,
think, oh, we know how to do it already. This is really
yep.
great. It's not a
These
shock.
stay at home orders were like really easy for us. Everybody
Yeah.
on our team already had home offices set up, and
Yeah.
we try to work with people. So like, all of our full-time people, if we were already doing flex days from home most weeks, like at least 2 to 3 days a week, people are
Yeah.
working from home. And so saying like, hey, how do we make sure that that's a really productive time for you? Right. So what do you need? Do you need an extra monitor at home? Do you need like, let's make sure everybody's got really good laptops so that they're, that that key tool that you have to do all your work, especially in a knowledge industry like ours. You need a really good tool that's going to solve your problems and help you do your work consistently, whether you're at the office or at home. So let's make sure everybody's got like a really good, high functioning laptop. We've even gotten into questions around like, how do we make sure you've got cell phone coverage? We haven't quite gotten to this. I think this is the next issue we're going to run into is Wi-Fi. So like everyone's Wi-Fi is different, or their internet service at home. And like even ours, like my internet at home doesn't really stand up to how much I need to use it if I'm working from home all the time. And I've got kids who want to pop on a Netflix show at some point during the day. And if I'm on a Zoom call at the same time they're running Netflix, we run into some issues. So
that's interesting.
I'm excited to start solving that problem. We're going to have to get creative about that because it's not like we're going to.
Statistics are pointing to the fact that people are actually a bit more productive at home than they are when they're locked into an office thing, because they're not always being interrupted. Right. That's the part that I like. I can really deep focus on something at home. Yep. You have more challenges than I do with three little ones that do pop up at interesting times. If you watch Jimmy Fallon, his kids come in, oh, there they are. That's challenging.
Yeah, definitely. There's those moments. Even the last couple of weeks, working from home a lot more than I'm used to. Like just yesterday, I was on a video call with 7 or 8 people, and my wife forgot that I might be on a call, and she just like walked right in to grab something out of our office, and not a huge deal. And I think people are getting more accustomed to that.
I think so
part
too.
Of it is just like even I follow a fantastic consultant for management, like employee management. His name's Mark Horstman. He puts out a great newsletter every day. He's been doing an everyday newsletter during this pandemic, which has been really cool. But he said one of the comments he got from one of the people that he was working with, one of the companies he was consulting for, a manager said, hey, like, how do I tell my direct report on my team that their kids interrupting our calls is annoying? And Mark's response was, this person is probably working from home for the first time. They have kids at home that they can't do anything about, right? So give them some slack. And I think that's part of this shift, right? It's not just a shift in technology or in the way we work or the way we think about productivity. It's also a shift in how we perceive social interactions. So like if I'm doing a meeting with a client and something random interrupts it, I think moving forward, that's going to become like more commonplace and therefore more acceptable, or at least understood, right? Like your kid pops into your office, just busts down the door and says something or does something, and everyone's just going to go, ha, that's funny, right?
And
you're going to deal with it, and then you're going to move on, and nobody's going to even think about it again.
And some of the ramifications, some of the extensions of what we're experiencing is a drop in air pollution.
Yep.
Los Angeles now has some of the cleanest air in the country because they're all at home. And in Venice, people can see the fish in the canals because the Vaporato boats are not polluting everything. I think actually the president, the prime minister of New Zealand sent out a poem. She didn't write it, but it's brilliant. And it's written from the point of view that, hey, Earth, we're here. We're going to take a little pressure off you now. We're going to stay inside. We're not going to be running all over so you can loosen that concrete belt, which I thought was terrific. And heal while we take care of ourselves within our own dens. And I think that's a really interesting way to think about it. We're staying home. We're seeing things at home. I'm noticing things at home that I'm not here all that much, and now I am. And now I want to stay here. I want to watch the blossoms grow into fruit. I want to watch my chickens a little more closely. They deserve
and I'm curious to see, like I've seen even just in our own family, and I don't want to extrapolate too much my own personal experience across, everyone's going to do the same thing or have the same realizations. But like we've invested quite a bit in the last few weekends in our own home. Like we actually built our first home garden. We're going to start growing some vegetables, and I spent a couple weekends building that and getting it filled. And I wonder, and I would assume, and I think I have some data points to back this up, that people are reinvesting in their own homes
They
and
are.
their yards
Particularly
and their gardens.
that way. There's a ton
Yep.
of articles about that. How to teach your kid to produce their own food going
Yep.
forward. Most of us learned from our grandparents,
Yep.
how to grow food because they
And
were doing it. And now they're learning it directly from their parents. It's
yep.
fantastic.
Yeah, and I think that's something that in general, especially in American culture, we've lost, right? Like
Yeah,
most people do not either have the opportunity or have not taken the time to invest in producing their own food.
right, because it's been
Because
easy
why
to
would you?
obtain it.
Yeah,
Right,
it's easy and cheap.
right.
So why would you do it? And when it's like, oh, I'm forced to be at home, I've got really nothing else to do other than like watch Netflix, I guess, which I think is just a terrible way to reinvest, time on a weekend with your family.
But
It's
the
like,
other thing is, they're saying that this pandemic that we're experiencing, the last thing of this magnitude was the Second World War. And
yep,
what came out of that Second World War were the victory gardens.
yep,
So if we look upon producing our own food this time as a victory garden, you're learning to live an entirely different way. And
yep,
there's tons of information, Mike, if you need it
yeah,
on YouTube about how to garden,
oh
what to
yeah,
do. And there's some local resources that do
yep,
great newsletters, and I can turn you
yep.
on to all that. I'm a
I'm sure
gardener.
you can.
I'm a major gardener.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
No, we've been super excited. I've been composting for like a year and a half and never had a thing to do with it. Okay, I can spread it on my grass, but how exciting is that? But to actually like have a garden that we can start taking some of the same energy that we've been putting into composting and
Mm-hmm.
trying to reuse things and
Mm-hmm.
say, hey, we're actually going to grow our own food. This first round I know will be an experiment and we'll probably have some failures and we'll learn from it. So
What do you
see
think
how
you're
it
going to
goes.
grow? What are you planning to do?
Well,
Vegetables?
yeah, we've got some veggies ready
Mm-hmm.
to go. I mean, we're pretty late in the season to be planting much. So we'll just see what takes. We've got cucumbers. We've got some lettuce. We've got
Oh, it's perfect. No, your
bunch of
timing is good.
herbs. Yeah, I love herbs. I've been growing herbs at home for a while, and so I'm excited to get those transplanted into something a little bigger. Um, so we'll definitely do lots of herbs. I can't remember. There was a couple other things. Some beans. We'll do some green beans.
Yeah, you're fine. Your timing is
Yep.
good. You'll be
Okay.
good. Because going forward, you're going to be a different person. The
Yep.
work you've been doing and will continue to do is going to be augmented by the time you don't spend in your car or you don't spend in needless meetings.
Yeah.
The changes are absolutely incredible, and I'm really curious to see how they impact Mac 6.
Yeah.
Already seeing what's going on at the warehouse where we have that sort of space between us anyway. But it's a challenging time. It's a
It
really
is.
challenging time. And
Yeah.
are you still working on projects? Do you still have things coming in so that you're
Yeah. I mean, we've definitely seen a change in our clients, budgets and what they're wanting
right?
to spend money on. I think, anytime that there's major uncertainty in business, that's going to happen. There's the hopeful
Oh
side of
yeah.
me that says, hey, this is not going to be long term, and if that's the case, we'll be just fine.
Mm-hmm.
um, if not, like if this is much longer term, then we've got some bigger decisions to make around, we're gonna have to pivot parts of our business. Now at
Mm-hmm.
least, like, we were doing a ton of video projects, those are all done. Like nobody is shooting video now. And we're gonna have to figure out some creative ways to like kind of bring that back online at some point.
Yeah.
And we've already started talking with a couple clients about like, hey, can we set up a clean studio, a clean room, make it really safe for everyone, and get creative about how we shoot video moving forward. Um, so that, that's there. We're also seeing a lot of clients transitioning, their businesses to more digital. And so that's actually been really cool. It's been exciting to watch clients as they're like, hey, we've got to be more digitally minded with our marketing, especially in B2B, where a lot of organizations, their main lead generation for their through their marketing is a lot of events. It's trade shows, it's conferences, it's seminars, and all of that's on hold. And so, like, I've got one client out in Florida who is like, hey, they had told me going into this year, they're like, we really want to redo our website, but we don't have time for it right now.
Right.
We've got all of our trade shows
Right.
this year. This is our trade show year, and we're going to be out, just, networking and building relationships all year long. I don't know if we're going to have time to redo the website. And the minute this hit, they called me and said, hey, we got time.
We've got time. Yeah.
So
we're sort of looking at some of those challenges, as the Olympics, because we have a lot of focus on the gymnastic and the athletic world.
yeah,
And that's kind of shut down. So
yeah,
it's like that whole idea of pivoting and dealing with the unknown. We don't know what it's going to be like when we come out of this. It's going to be different, but keeping that positive point of view, it's going to go. We're going to be here. We're still going to be here. It may be a little different for a while, but we're going to be here. I know we are, and I know you are. And
we'll be here.
I thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. Really appreciate it, Mike. And we'll probably visit with you again in maybe a year and see what has changed, what has transpired. But in the meantime, please stay safe.
Yeah, you
and
too, Dan.
Everyone out there, please stay safe. We're going to be going through some changes at Truce. We know that, but we are still going to be there. Our products are solid, just as your work is solid, and we will be back. And we'll be back next week to talk to our fabulous feng shui expert. So when in doubt, feng shui. Meanwhile, people, wash your hands, take care. We love you. Thank you for listening and watching. Bye. Bye, Mom.
Bye, Diane.